It's now my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker for today, Jared Ingersoll, who's the Head of Sustainability at Canva. Starting his career as as a restaurateur and a leading chef, writer and TV presenter, Jared spent decades putting the spotlight on the importance of developing sustainable and engaging solutions. He's focused on developing impactful strategies and systems that tackle climate change, and his deep passion for sustainability has seen him join Canva, one of the world's most exciting and impactful tech companies, which we at Blackbird are very pleased to have been a backer of since 2012. As Canva's global sustainability lead, he's responsible for driving the company to work harder on its journey towards sustainability. He's set crazy big goals for Canva's global operations to achieve climate neutrality by the end of the year, and he aspires for Canva to become a carbon neutral company. However, carbon is only one part of Canva's journey towards sustainability. Human-focused solutions that empower change and inspire other companies and organizations to act more sustainably is what really drives Jared and Canva. And you're going to hear a lot more about that from him now. Without further ado, welcome, Jared.
Hello, thank you very much, Kate. So I will just do the old share screen thing, and I'm hoping that works, and I'm going to plow on regardless. But yeah, so hello, good morning. Lovely to be here. I just would also like to just sort of acknowledge the country I'm on. So I'm also Wangal Gadigal country, and specifically that's Newtown. Specifically, it's overlooking King Street at the moment. And I always like to reflect on this when we do an acknowledgement for a couple of reasons. It's good to sort of know what country you're on, but it's really sort of inspiring when you look past our recent history and you expose some of the learnings that come from First Nations peoples all over the planet. There's a wealth of knowledge that sits inside these traditional knowledge systems, and there's certainly something that inspires me a lot. Just a quick, assuming that some of you may have heard of Canva, but for those who haven't, I kind of joke sometimes like Canva's really good at not doing much. So we don't actually, what we do is we empower people to design. So we've built this platform that allows people to communicate visually, whether it's a meme or a social graphic or a poster or a video. Canva's a design platform that makes design easy for everybody. We have we've got about over 150,000 designs created every second on Canva, and we've got about 75 million people on the platform every month. So it's a pretty significant community that we're here for. A really important part of Canva is making design, democratizing design, making it accessible to everybody. So we're really focused on making sure that we're in every region and also talking all the languages. So Canva's the design platform, but a really important part of our business and an area that's growing quite significantly is that we've got a pretty big print business. And so you can actually go into Canva and design whatever it is you want to design, and then a couple of clicks of the mouse, you can have your swag delivered. But what it does mean is that when it comes to looking at our emissions footprint, we're not just a software company. We've got like a significant footprint in a traditional bricks and mortar business, if you want to think about it like that. So one of the things I like to do whenever I talk about this stuff is that I like to contextualize what climate change means to me and how it impacts me, and through this, what it means to the individual. Because I think that we are always looking at IPCC reports and what policy and governments and organizations, but it's kind of important to bring it back to what is the impact to me and my kids. And this is a really cool graph I stole from somebody else and stuck my face on it. But it sort of does show that that green line is, where we want to get to, and the red is where we're currently tracking. And when you look at this from an intergenerational impacts, it really does help to communicate what the scale and all the severity of the problem that we're facing. And when you think about things such as like, that 1.5 degree or 2 degree, they seem like small numbers, but they're actually really significant numbers. The Val guys use a reference of New York City as the global population. And one of the things that we know is that we don't know what's going to happen at 1.5, 1.2 degree warming, but we do know what it looks like when it was 1.5, 2 degrees colder. And at that time, New York City was under about 2 to 3 meters of permafrost. So these small numbers actually do have a really big impact. when it comes to sustainability, most of us accept the fact that it does touch everything. Like, it's not just a case of economic impacts and environmental impacts. There's a really big human and social component to it. So when we're sort of thinking about sustainability in Canva, this is always like at the fore. So there are projects that focus specifically on energy, but we're aware of the economic and the human and the social impacts of all of the things that we do. A really quick way of sort of summarizing what Canva's strategy is that we are focused on offsets. We are that is the carbon component is a really important part. Focusing on the carbon of our operations is the way we see that is sort of dealing with the elephant in the room. It's not just about offsets. Offsets are a part of that journey, but we're very focused on reducing and ultimately removing our emissions as we move forward. When we did the first time we looked at our emissions footprint was in 2019, and then we were able to sort of make an assessment of what 2018 looked like. So we've sort of started our journey in, we're looking at sort of these numbers here. So we're looking at, like, 2018 is where we started. We're just a little company, and we're a company that's experiencing hypergrowth. And with that hypergrowth comes a huge amount of responsibility. What's that? Yeah, sorry, I don't know what that was. With growth comes a great deal of responsibility. We're in a very privileged position. We're enjoying a lot of success. But when it comes to tackling climate change, we can either, we must decarbonize faster. And that red line indicates where we would be if we didn't care and we just carried on. The pink line is where we're tracking, and the blue line is what our ultimate goal is. We're focusing on decarbonizing our entire operations. So we do have some really ambitious emissions targets. And one of the things I'll touch on later is, like, it's good to be bold. Do I think that we'll be able to entirely decarbonize our operations by 2028? It's possible. It's going to be really hard. We might not get 100% there, but we're setting that sort of really bold target. But it's really important that we're not focusing, at Canva, we're not just focusing on a spreadsheet. It's not just about a KPI. It's not just about climate actor certification. We want to really focus on the humanities and what it means to be a human, basically, the stuff that makes you feel good. So Canva is unique in some ways. Like, I think all organizations have core values and mission statements, but one of the things that I've found to be unique and inspiring, what drew me to work at Canva, is Canva started, when it started, they had these values. So when Mel and Cliff, there's a picture, I couldn't find it actually, where Mel had sketched out her goals, and she had a simple two-step plan. And the first step was to become the most valuable company in the world. And the second one was to do the most good. So right from the beginning, Canva had these sort of values of growth, lofty goals, and also, rethinking its impact. So it's not just it's not just about profit. It's about, how do we build a company that does the most good in the world? I mentioned before that, we're a design platform where our success is that we empower other people to bring to life their designs, and we help them communicate. And that empowerment piece has actually been the key of our success. Like, anybody can use Canva for free. Obviously, there's tiered paid subscription models, but essentially anybody on the planet can use Canva, and we can help you communicate what it is that you want to get across. A really important part of Canva is our impact into the community. So we've got 200,000 not-for-profit organizations that currently use Canva for free. And another example of how we try to empower is that when we looked at the number of Earth Day template downloads or Earth Day downloads last year, we saw that 3.1 million people downloaded sort of climate-related, Earth Day-related templates leading up to Earth Day. And so what that told us is that our community out there in the world are actually coming to Canva with climate change, sustainability, wanting to make the world a better place at the forefront of their head. So we're in the process of launching like a playbook that's been curated so that if you're a school, an office, an organization, whatever, there's assets that you can use there to help create templates to communicate your sustainability journey or just do a social media post. Another way that we try to empower others is that we do genuinely try to do the most good that we can. And a really good way of sort of bringing that to life is when we think about our procurement and how we purchase. And so impact is actually used to help us decide on the type of food and beverage we drink, all the way through to the type of energy we procure and the cloud services that we use. And so it's not just a simple case of building a platform that does good stuff. We are really focused on, through our actions, we are focusing on what it is that we're supporting. Now, we know that the design side of Canva is heavily reliant on energy and cloud services. And so we know that transitioning to renewables is a huge challenge that we must do faster than we have. And it's really awesome to see those solar cells before, because that's a huge game changer. But even though Canva's, we've got a relatively small footprint in the scheme of things, our focus on renewables is actually really, really important, because we're a small company, our footprint is relatively small, but we, stealing a line from Cameron, one of the founders, where it's the height of hypocrisy if you are wanting to see change in others and not being prepared to make the changes yourself. And so we are really focused on getting as much renewable energy to everyone that uses Canva as possible. And we're starting with our offices. So we've got a PPA agreement for our Sydney office that kicked in the beginning of 2021. And by 2023, mid to end of 2023, we'll have all of our global offices on renewables. One of the interesting things in this challenge is that when we looked at the impact from COVID and distributed workforce, we now recognize that most of our energy used to build our product is happening in is being consumed in people's homes. So we're actually really trying to sort of crack that. Like, how do we ensure that the energy being used to produce Canva, make Canva, is actually being supported by renewables? And we've got some really exciting projects that we're hoping to announce in the next short while. AWS does all of the heavy lifting with our cloud services. And this is an example of really good sharing of goals and collaboration. So we started chatting with AWS 18 months, almost 2 years ago, and we shared with them the fact that we wanted to hit these certain sustainability targets, and they were developing a platform that allows their customers to get onto to be able to track what your emissions are as they relate directly to your cloud services. And through that collaboration and sharing of goals, Canva's now, I think we're sitting about 99.6% renewables. So like all of the data that is used to power Canva, it's roughly the equivalent emissions to the average Australian, and would generate over 5 months. So that was a significant win, and that was done through strong collaboration and just chatting with your supply chain. One of the things that's really, really important with our environmental sustainability focus is that we acknowledge that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Canva's been around for a bit over 8 years. We didn't invent the internet or electricity. So for us to just look at our footprint, for us it seems a little bit sort of disingenuous and not really quite trying hard enough. So we're really focusing hard on repair and celebrating biodiversity and traditional knowledge systems to sort of rebuild and to repair some of the damages or impacts that have come from getting us to the place where we can enjoy our success. One example is that I mentioned the print side of the business before. So we are committed to putting 1 seed in the ground for every print order that's ever been delivered to a Canva customer. And by sort of October, November of this year, we'll have about 3.5 million trees in the ground, with another couple of million in escrow. And it's really important when we look at the tree planting, these are not carbon projects. We're not using them to offset our emissions as a part of that climate active certification. The metrics that we're using when we talk about our tree planting is number of trees. We've got something like about 180 different species of trees. We've got about 30 to 40 different endangered species that we are looking to protect by the end of the year. We count things such as hectares of land, water table, quality levels, hours of employment, because these are the things that we recognize are empowering and inspiring stories that help motivate people to come on the journey with us. Because it's not just a case of spreadsheets and stuff. It's just generally, sometimes it's just create a good story that makes people feel good. So what has been easy in the Canva journey is, first of all, it's been getting buy-in. People love that Canva cares about the environment, and people love the fact that we're really focused on being a force for good. And we see that not only in our success of growth from our users and subscriptions that we get at Canva, but we also see that in the fact that we're attracting some of the brightest minds in the world. There are some really skilled people out there. Like if I had $1 for every sustainability expert that works in the mining industry and then decided that they wanted to work, sorry, I shouldn't pick on the mining industry, but there are people, these amazing skills that have just got to the point where they want to use their powers for good. And it was a motivating thing for me to join Canva, but I see it in all the new people that we see joining the team. Last year, we employed 1,300 people and we had 240,000 applicants. So that's a really powerful signal, and something I'd love everybody to think on, the fact that by Canva just wanting to be good and be a force for good, it's attracting a lot of people and a lot of attention. So what was hard for Canva's sustainability journey is the hardest thing is data, and it still continues to be a big challenge. It's a really complex problem. The challenges in the data are shared by everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a team of one and you're a startup, or if you are a huge multinational organization. Our journey started relying very heavily on external consultants, and we still engage with some really amazing consultants. But we're really focusing on transitioning that dependency for the data to being in-house. And so once we get the data, that allows us to become carbon neutral, which is kind of the simplest thing that we can do. And but it also allows us to use the data to start to create some really beautiful and inspiring initiatives. So we're certified carbon neutral, and that certification is going to be extended to our global operations and print, hopefully sooner than what we thought we were. But the other things that we use the data is, and we're looking at things such as staff travel. We can then use data to inform specific strategies or initiatives to create buy-in. Like, how do we go about electrifying our distribution network as well as our employees' transport? Where should office hubs go in order to still create those areas of community without people having to travel too far? So there's a lot of really exciting stuff that you can do once you've got good data. But by all means, don't wait until you get perfect data, because that will never happen. Move forward with what you got. That's one of the things that I think would nice little segue into some advice for getting started. So I always get asked a bunch of questions, and one of the questions is, how the hell did a chef get the sustainability lead at Canva? And that's a whole different story. I won't get bogged down by that one. But when it comes to getting advice, it's really important to recognize that every organization is different. We've all got different customer bases, we've got different visions, we're all very different. So rather than sort of running through a step-by-step, do this first, I thought I'd just sort of distill it down to some pieces of advice, which I think that would that I find valuable, and when I share them with other people, I think it's generally well received. We know that climate change is real. Like in Australia, we've seen in the last recent years, we've seen awful drought, and not only climate change, but misuse of water. We've seen horrendous bushfires and the horrendous floods. So these are things that we know are happening. No one can deny this. It's backed up by science. But one of the things that I would do is, like, I've focused a couple of times on the devastation of climate change, but transition your language to opportunity, to what is possible. Really try to start to unlock what are the opportunities, not just commercially, but for the planet. So what are the things that you can do to start to plant the seeds for transitional change? What is it? Create the world that you want to see, not run from the stick, but know what would a truly sustainable organization look like? And start to sort of think about the positivity of this situation. Another piece of advice is I like to refer to look for your gateway drugs. Like, what is the thing that may not be the biggest problem, but it starts to create conversations that help you tackle the biggest problem. This example is, so Canva's food is a really important part of Canva's culture, right from the early days in the team moving to Surrey Hills, and they had a team of 8, they would always sit for lunch every day. And so coming together and eating is something that is a wonderful way for humans to connect. So we're really focused on the food that we bring in. So Hebron Farm gives us about 80% of our produce. It's located about 60 k's from us. We didn't buy a farm. This is a commercial relationship. So it's not like, oh, this is all very well for a rich cashed up tech company. This is something that people can do. And by sitting around a table of food, we've been able to have really interesting conversations around regenerative agriculture, circularity, what it means to compost the waste, energy, distribution chains. Like, it's that thing where it's the gateway drug to broader conversations. So this kind of works for Canva. We've got amazing initiatives, including working with First Nations people. And there's a whole pile of stuff that has come from just focusing on how good can we make lunch. So have a think about what your gateway drug is. What are the conversations that you want to create? And what are the areas of engagement that you can create in them? And the other thing, and this is to have a think about what are the areas of impact that you want people to focus on. These are ours. They're not necessarily anything that we may not report on them publicly, or, you know, this is very much for our internal audience at the moment. And what these 3 metrics do is, because we're focused on decarbonizing our operations, we've divided that sort of that goal up into 3 sort of areas that everybody at Canva can relate to. So our talent acquisition, HR, the Vibe team that looks after facilities and construction, they're constantly looking at how many people, what are the hiring roadmaps. So reporting to that metric makes a lot of sense to those people. Again, with engineers and all the back end people, you know, we're always looking at what are the emissions that come from our users, and from there we're able to start looking at, you know, what are the downstream impacts that we can have. Like, you know, how do we build for what are the most efficient builds that will have flow-on effects? Like, we know that our cloud is looking pretty good, but what about the person that's using a social media post in Brazil on their iPhone? So there's a huge amount of work that can be done there. And the final one is our emissions from print and the sort of initiatives that are coming from looking at the per print order. We're focusing really closely on how we distribute, locations of print partners, the type of distribution method, and what are the fuels used. So these 3 metrics make the most sense for Canva, because they're allowing everybody in the company to take a chunk and then work on that chunk to get us to the ultimate goal of decarbonizing our entire operations. And that's the end of my spiel. So thank you all very much.